Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'm lounging about because it's a chill Sunday, relaxed Sunday vibe. Plus, I ran quite a bit this morning in the heat on the boardwalk, which was not my smartest idea because I ran at like the peak heat hours of the day. But I had a good cause, a good reason, because I ran to get to this bathhouse that I'll talk about in a second. So that's why I'm lounging about. I didn't feel like sitting in my usual position with everything sort of orchestrated. I just want to have a stream of consciousness video, story time, we'll say, to talk about this bathhouse that I went to today. Now, I know sometimes when I talk about travel or a place that I explored, like a bar or a bathhouse, people complain in the comments when I don't show like actual footage, video of me walking around a bathhouse. And I understand that to an extent, but again, I just want this to be a fireside chat vibe, okay? But I will link to a previous video up here where I talked about this exact bathhouse that I totally forgot I had made a video about. I totally forgot because it wasn't a gay bathhouse. In fact, in that video, I complained about how it was co-ed and women were everywhere running amok in this bathhouse. I totally forgot that I had made a video about that experience and never went back to this local bathhouse. And this was sort of before my recent fascination with bathhouses as a phenomenon. But anyway, I will link to that video because I just watched it before starting this video. I watched it for context and to remind myself what I talked about and what that first experience was like. And turns out in that video, I shared a bunch of photos from Google or like Yelp or whatever website that are directly of this bathhouse that I'm talking about. So if you want a clearer visual description of that place, please watch that video. This video will not be that. This is your final warning. If you're one of those people who goes straight to the comments and complains that I'm just talking in my apartment, which I clearly am, this video might not be for you. So anyway, like I said, I went to this bathhouse previously, and then it turned out it was co-ed, which annoyed me because, and this is just how I am with spas in general, it's the one arena in society where I believe, please let me know in the comments what you think about this, where I believe gender segregation is totally appropriate, because I just feel like steam rooms, saunas and stuff, it's like very intimate. Also, I just don't like crowds. Like I would like to limit the amount of individuals in a place anyway, so that for my own selfish enjoyment, but also to me, there's something sort of spiritual about spas. I feel like it should be peaceful, it should be calm, it should be quiet. So limiting how many people are there in attendance is a factor, but also just my personal opinion, I feel like a lot of women see spas, in my experience, they see spas as like a social experience, a social gathering. And I remember the last time I went to this place, I remember walking into the steam room and these women were talking at such a loud volume about like Becky's bachelorette party. And I was so annoyed because, again, to me, there's a ritual around going into a steam room, and you lower your voices. It's not a place for like a gossip session, in my opinion. So anyway, turns out this place has men's only hours. I did not know this. I don't know how I did not know this. I don't know if it's a new thing, but when I watched my previous video on this local bathhouse in Miami Beach, I didn't mention it. So I feel like I must have not known. I don't know if it wasn't well indicated at the time. I don't know. But this time it was very well indicated. I looked up this place again out of curiosity. I had nothing to do this morning at the time that I'm making this video. And I thought, you know what? This will be I'll have a very healthy Sunday. I'll run to the bathhouse, maybe take a quick dip in the ocean. At the bathhouse, I'll get a nice, not rejuvenation, but with all the steam rooms and all the showers and the saunas, like I'll have a nice ritual for my skin, and then I'll run home. So that's exactly what I did. And I made sure, of course, to go during the men's only hours, which, by the way, are twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays, this place has men's only mornings. And I think there's a day or two where they do women's only hours, which I think makes total sense. Same thing for women. I'm sure a lot of women don't want to share these intimate facilities with men either. In fact, I just find it weird in general to have them co-ed the rest of the time. But I guess for them, it's also about making money, right? Like if you have potentially twice the amount of people, that's a lot more money for this business, right? So it makes sense. Anyway, of course, if you've been keeping up with my recent videos the past, I guess, 6-ish months, a little bit more than 6 months, bathhouses are kind of like a new point of interest for me. Never been to bathhouses before. Before going to this place the last time, I just never knew anything about bathhouses. But now it's like this point of curiosity for me, particularly since I went to this hammam in Istanbul, a men's only hammam, which I'll link to up here as well. Some of you might remember that video. That is my most viewed video of all time. At the time that I'm making this video, that video has over 150,000 views, which is insane. It paid for my rent 1 month from ad revenue. That's how many people have engaged with the video. So that was sort of like a life-changing experience where I discovered this whole other world of bathhouses, again, from a spiritual perspective, but also, frankly, dare I say, it was sort of a coming of age thing for me to be in this, frankly, very homoerotic place where things were happening in certain corners of this ancient hammam, basically. So this is a new sort of point of curiosity for me. I went to a bathhouse, or gay sauna rather, in Fort Lauderdale about a month ago. I'll link to that video as well if you're curious. And that was a very different experience. Some of you might remember that video. I was not really a fan. I felt it was kind of dingy and the crowd was lackluster. There were a lot of creeps. Maybe I just got unlucky. But let's talk about this bathhouse in Miami during their men's only hours. So like I said, Sunday mornings, only men. It's very bare bones. You pay an admission fee. They give you, a key that you keep around your wrist for a locker. You put all your stuff in there. They just give you 1 or 2 towels. It's not a very fancy spa by any means. I was actually happy to get 2 towels because the last time they only gave one. And I remember that it was just this tiny little towel. And I'm like, how am I need more than 1 towel when I go to, a place that has saunas and steam rooms and hot tubs. Like, because, what you're supposed to do at these places is you're constantly supposed to rinse yourself, to cleanse yourself, but also just for like purification purposes. So I need more than 1 towel. Let's just leave it at that. Between the saunas and the steam rooms, taking a shower every 5 seconds, you need more than 1 towel. So anyway, they give me 2 towels, found my locker, and as soon as I'm in the locker room to change, there's just a nude young man just standing there. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this is starting early, right? I'm always really impressed by people who are that comfortable with their body, by the way, and nudity. I think it's nice. I'm not that way. I'm at least not yet. But I would never think to just be completely nude in a locker room of any kind. But anyway, of course, his locker was right next to mine. They assign you these lockers, so it's not like I chose because it's key based. So he's totally naked, and I had to be like, excuse me, and stand right next to him as I'm changing. So I leave the locker room. And by the way, it's worth mentioning these men's only hours. Now, perhaps I just went on an off day. I don't know. I actually thought it would be much busier because at the time that I'm making this video, it's the World Cup is happening and there are Miami soccer games happening. So there's a lot of tourists here right now from Latin America as well as Europe, or just in general, but particularly from those regions, who are like soccer fanatics. And usually this time of year, it's the slow season for Miami because it's so hot in the summer. So I was pleasantly surprised that there could not have been more than 10 guys who I saw during this duration of my time at this bathhouse. So think about it, a bathhouse with a bunch of different rooms, steam rooms, saunas, and so on. To only see about 10 people is sort of amazing. So for that alone, I want to go back to this place. again. And just for context, you pay, I think it's like 60, 65 bucks that you pay for admission all day. Remember, this is not a gay bathhouse. It's co-ed most of the time. So I really didn't know what to expect. These men's only hours, one can imagine if a man is going purposely during men's only hours, he's probably trying to go at a time that women are not there, which, either he hates women, either he's misogynistic, or he's gay and he's hoping, for some action. But you never know, right? You never know. The other thing worth mentioning is this place is full of cameras, which for me was very jarring. Like, I guess last time there were also so many, it was so crowded that I just didn't pay attention. But this time I marveled, I must have seen at least a dozen cameras. Not just in the main areas, by the way, but like I went into one of the smaller saunas and there's a camera staring straight into the sauna. The steam rooms, of course, have no cameras, which makes sense because it's probably problematic for the technology for the cameras. But all the smaller rooms had cameras from the outside because most of them are glass doors from the outside, aimed right at the room to see what's up. So it felt a little bit Big Brother ish. But anyway, I digress. So I'm exploring. I noticed the cameras. I noticed there were very few guys, and I went straight into the steam room. I love a steam room. The steam room is my favorite part of a spa always. I just love the vibe of like you can barely see and I'm a steam room person. Please let me know in the comments, are you a steam room person or a sauna person or neither? See, I don't really fancy saunas. I just don't like dry heat. I feel like if I'm going to be that hot, I want at least moisture that I feel like is probably much better for my skin, and I don't want to get dehydrated. Anyway, so I walk into the steam room, and immediately when I sit down, I make eye contact with this guy, this tall, sort of brawny guy. And then next to him is another guy who has his towel open. He's nude, towel open, and he just starts playing with himself. Myself and the other guy, we're just sitting there. We're not doing anything, but this other guy just starts playing with himself. Within a couple minutes, the other guy gets up and leaves. And then I left a couple minutes later. The guy playing with himself was not a looker, by the way. So I didn't want him to think that me staying is a sign of me being into it. But it was like the fact that I had just entered the steam room, I don't want to leave immediately. So I gave it a few minutes. He keeps playing with himself while looking at me. This happened also at the Fort Lauderdale steam room as well, at the gay sauna. So I guess some guys just don't get the memo. This is what I was saying earlier. Some of these places just have creeps who don't get it, but sometimes you also encounter somebody who you do connect with, right? So I leave the steam room and I head towards the whirlpool, like there's this giant hot tub, and I see the guy that I had locked eyes with. So I sit in the hot tub, and you know how it's just like an energetic thing. You feel like there's something there, like a sexual tension. It's from eye contact and just there's something there. So it seemed mutual to me. So I just strike a conversation with him. I go, "Are you Russian?" Because he looked Russian-ish, and this is a Russian/Turkish bathhouse. And I've noticed the last time there were a lot of Russian and Slavic people there. So I'm like, this is a good entryway for a conversation. He goes, "No, but my wife is a Russian Jew, and she introduced me to this whole culture of uh, saunas and steam rooms." So immediately, right, I'm like, oh, is he telling me this to indicate that he's not into guys, or is this like the facade, or not the facade, the truth? But I've please tell me in the comments if you've had this experience. I've noticed that some married to women, in heterosexual marriages, some men will lead with that because they think it's like a turn on for gay guys. And I'm sure it is a turn on for some guys. It's not a turn on for me. So immediately I was put off by that. And then he keeps going. He's like, yeah, for Father's Day, it was Father's Day at the time that I went to this place. For Father's Day, I said to her, you can stay home with the kid. I just want to have a day to myself. So to me, as he was talking, this all felt like code, that he's here to hang out with guys, right? He's here during men's only hours. It's Father's Day, and he'd rather be by himself at a bathhouse. I mean, it says a lot, right? But I'm already, weirded out, turned off. I'm like, why are you telling me all this? And by the way, I imagine so many men go to this place during men's only hours, and they probably bring their wives during the co-ed hours so that they feel less threatened by the idea of going to a bathhouse during men's only hours. Um, it's so bizarre how this is a phenomenon. Like married guys who go to these places to presumably find, gay men or maybe other married guys on the down low or whatever. So I leave the hot tub and I start, exploring the other rooms. Again, so few guys that I was pleasantly surprised. I go back to the steam room. I'm by myself. And then the guy who was playing with himself earlier comes in and he immediately starts playing with himself again. Like he just doesn't get the hint that I'm not interested. So I'm just sitting there pretending he doesn't exist, right? But again, I'm like, if I sit there when he's right across from me and I don't leave, does he assume that I'm into it by not leaving? And he just kept going and going. It's kind of funny, by the way, but the guy was, again, not, I wasn't into it. I left the steam room. I explore another room. So I go to this tiny little sauna, separate room with a glass door. So you can see people walking by, right? And this man walks by. And this man looks like a caveman to me in a sexy way, like just a rugged man, ethnically ambiguous. If I had to guess, I would have said uh, Middle Eastern, but not quite Arab. He actually looked like he could be maybe like East Turkish. And he walks by and he stares at me, but almost in like a menacing way. And, men are odd. Sometimes I feel like that is their flirtation instead of smiling, or it's just like an intense stare. So he gives me this intense stare, which I perceived as sexual interest. So, I was like, oh, that was interesting. And he walks by. Again, that look during men's only hours, he's by himself, good looking guy. I just assumed, okay, there was something there, right? And I guess like 5 minutes later, I explore another room where the guy from before was hanging out. Actually, the guy with the wife and kids. So I just, glide right by him. And I go into this other sauna that's tucked away. So there's several saunas in this place, but there's one that's like really tucked away and easy to miss. And it's also insanely hot. Like a sauna by definition is hot, but this sauna is insanely hot. And I remember this from the last time too. So I walk in and who's there but this, the the guy with the menacing glare that, by the way, is very attractive. He doesn't look up. I just make my way down the corridor of this sauna. I sit and I am instantly, uh, spike back up. Like I can't handle the heat of even the bench to sit. But I realize that's the side that has the charcoal or whatever. Like that's this, I'm very close to where the source of heat is coming from. So I'm like, let me switch benches. So I switch benches and now I'm on the same bench as him, but you could fit like 5 people between us. I didn't sit right next to him. I didn't do anything bizarrely suggestive. I'm just sitting there and I cannot handle the seat. Like it's too intense. But I also am curious about this guy who I'm pretty sure there was like a thing with. This man, by the way, is in the zone to the point where I wondered if he was praying because he's like practically curled up in a ball like this and just in the zone. Okay. So I keep looking over every, 20 seconds, like, how you doing over there? Like, how can you handle this heat? Right. And again, remember, I love a steam room. I can stay in a steam room forever. I can stay in a hot tub forever. But this sauna, next level. So finally, I'm like, I can't even handle this heat. I must have stayed literally just a couple minutes. Like I couldn't do it. But I'm still curious about this guy, right? So on my way out, I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Thinking he'd say something. This man, it's like I'm a ghost. Like, I'm invisible. He doesn't look up. He doesn't nod in agreement. No chuckle. Nothing. He definitely heard me. So I just assumed either he doesn't speak English or he's just kind of a dick. And as I'm leaving this area, I'm thinking people are so strange to have the audacity to stare at somebody, whether it was sexual interest or not. It felt like sexual interest to me, to stare at me, and then they don't want to engage. I think a lot of guys, they like playing or toying with the idea of intimacy with another guy, or like maybe they like the attention, but they don't actually want to go there. It's almost like a notch on their belt. So I hover around room to room, just hanging out. And at one point, I pass a sauna that has a glass door. And the guy from before who was pleasuring himself, he's going full throttle now, pleasuring himself right at the entrance. Like, he didn't even try to find a discreet corner of the sauna or head back to the steam room where there's more discretion, right? Because it's all fogged up. No, he's like in clear plain sight. And I imagine a lot of these places also attract exhibitionists, like people who love to expose themselves. But I was so shocked by this because this is not technically a gay bathhouse. Remember, it's usually co-ed. The women are going to come in like 20 minutes, and there's cameras everywhere. Again, remember. So it made me think, this guy could just not get the memo. Maybe he gets a high from potentially being exposed. But it also made me think maybe this guy's a local, comes here all the time, and this is the vibe during men's only hours. Like, I'm now so curious to come back another time during these men's only hours and see if it's consistent with this experience that I had today, where it's very few guys, uh, and some people definitely just wanting to hang out and enjoy a steam room and sauna, but also some guys clearly looking for action, despite the women, you know, anytime now. They're about to join the premises. If you're Miami local, or you know the area very well and you explore bathhouses, please let me know if you've been to this place. It's Mid Beach in Miami Beach. I'm curious what others' experiences are like there, and as always, curious otherwise what thoughts you might have on this video and this story. I'll catch you guys next time.